And do you want to start this, Romero, or do you want me to start it? What would you like? What's your pleasure?
No, I just like to frame, this is a request by the Thurston Climate Action Team to give you a briefing related to some of the proposals they have, as you may be considering funding for some of those proposals in the upcoming budget, I believe. There's really honoring their request to have a briefing from the board.
Thank you. And when some time ago, I don't remember when it was, I'm sure Tom or Chris remember, we had a chat about this, and it seemed viable enough information. And so I asked that they present to the entire board, because I'm only one of three. And so that's what the purpose of this briefing is. So that's their invite was for me to come to the board. So with that, who's going to speak? Who's going to begin this? Tom, Chris, Joel, anybody?
I will, pardon me, Commissioner Hutchings, I will go ahead and start the discussion, and then I'll turn it over to Chris for a few remarks, and then I'll wrap it up. Is it possible for me to share my screen with you so we can show the slides to the commissioner that we prepared?
Yeah, you should be able to share it. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Oh, hi, Phyllis.
Commissioner Hutchings, I just wanted to mention that we also met with Commissioner Edwards about this, and he also encouraged us to give the briefing and to bring a request to the commission.
Wonderful, thank you.
Okay, I'm having difficulty here now.
I just don't want to set it up right up front. I hope you don't expect that there'll be any decisions made today. We don't make decisions the same day we hear information and such.
Yeah, no, yeah, we understand that. Thank you.
Okay.
I apologize. I'm having some difficulty finding the screen I want to share with you all. So let's see. It's not there. I'm going to have to, I'm going to share something and I'll stop my share right away. Oh, no, stop share. Give me a second here.
If you need me to, Tom, I can jump in to the lurch there and share my screen instead.
Yeah. If you've got it ready, why don't you go ahead and do that? Thank you.
All right. Just give me a sec. Oh, you gotta get to the beginning though. Here we go. Is that can people see that?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
All right, Tom, I'll advance the slides at the appropriate time and we're on your cue, so go ahead.
Perfect. Thank you very much. So thank you, commissioners, for the opportunity to talk with you today about these important topics. And thank you also especially for your ongoing commitment and your patience and perseverance, especially in this difficult time, and your concern and receptivity to our community response to our COVID-19 pandemic. So we'd like to talk with you about how, and I know you all are committed to addressing both this crisis and the longer term climate crisis that's in front of us. So again, thank you for giving us this opportunity. Next, Chris. So we'd like to give you a brief preview of what we want to talk about. First, we'd like to talk about the case for clean energy as a key component of economic and, frankly, health recovery within our county. Then we'd like to discuss with you some seed funding to prepare and position the county to take advantage of federal funds that we believe are coming down the pike within the next few months. And we'd also like to talk with you about advocacy that we think the county and in cooperation with the other cities within the county can be very effective in advocating for economic recovery stimulus dollars at the federal and state level. So Chris? And so first, we'd like to make the case for a clean energy recovery. And so I think you all have heard, or we certainly have talked in our newsletter extensively about how we see the connection between COVID and climate change. First of all, it's shown the vulnerability of our current health, food, and economic structures and systems to some unpredictable and sudden changes and threats that can come up upon us apparently without warning. Climate change, we've had plenty of warning about this. Chris, could you go back to the...
Yeah, I'm sorry, that was accidental.
Okay. We've had plenty of, we have plenty of warning, and we are, and both crises require that we not go back to business as usual. So let's go to the next slide, Chris. And so we also know that both of these crises have disproportionate impact on low-income communities and our communities of color, people of color. And we already are seeing figures that tell us that poor people, Black people, Indigenous folks, Latinx folks are dying at a higher rate than some of the rest of us. We also know that we have a poverty rate in Thurston County of about 11%, and we have 36% of the housing units in Thurston County were rentals. And we'll talk a little later about the fact that about 50% of rentals are occupied by folks who are cost burdened. And so that's not a good situation for us. And we also know that the households that are cost burdened within Thurston County make up about 38,000 households. And so again, with these crises, we can expect that this number will increase dramatically, and it already has. We're pretty confident, although we don't, we obviously no one's collected the numbers at this point, but it's pretty obvious that with falling income and other economic impacts of this crisis, that's occurring. So Chris, next. We've talked to you before about the, some of the aspects of climate change that we're already seeing, and we can impacts on our local community and our local economy, and we can see those increasing over time. From heat waves leading to strokes and other kinds of health impacts, to forest fires leading to poor air quality, impact on our shellfish from ocean acidification that results from climate change, or flooding, landslides, and obviously, as the City of Olympia and others are currently working on, our sea level rise. So Chris? And then you'll see in your notes there a recent paper by the National Bureau of Economic Research that, this is another point I wanted to make, that climate change nationally could cost our economy about 10.5% of our gross domestic product. We know that the gross domestic product of Thurston County is about $14 billion currently. So that means $1.5 billion, just the economic impact. And I would consider that a conservative figure. So those are big numbers. And so I think it behooves us to use that as context for relatively small investments that we can make now to avoid those impacts. And so we also know that from a job standpoint, we get much higher return from renewable energy jobs and energy efficiency jobs than from fossil fuel jobs. And it turns out we also get, on average, higher number of jobs than even the average number, if we invested this, across all sectors of the economy. Still, the number of jobs created in renewable energy and energy efficiency are somewhat higher than the average. And you'll see in the notes some more detail of that. I won't go into this at this point, but just to say there's a big opportunity for job creation here in Thurston County. And if you'd like more information or dig more deeply into these quotes and references we've attached here, be happy to follow up with that information. From the standpoint of health, Chris, you go on to the next slide. From the standpoint of health, we know that according to the Union of Concerned Scientists, air and water pollution emitted by coal and natural gas plants linked with breathing problems. We also see that on our roadways, just traveling around with internal combustion engines creates particulates that lead to heart and lung problems. And so just from a health standpoint, it makes sense to do the things that we can do to create a better economy, a more vibrant economy, and at the same time improve our health by really focusing on clean energy and clean transportation. And there was a Harvard study that estimated the health cost, just the financial cost that could be calculated from health impacts from coal, the use of coal alone are over $74 billion every year. So again, we're talking about big numbers and significant impacts. And so now I'd like to turn it over to Chris to talk a little bit about how we might leverage stimulus funds to address both the COVID crisis and the climate crisis at the same time.
Great, thank you, Tom. Yeah, just to kind of recap what Tom just said, you know, we obviously are in a serious pandemic health crisis, but at the same time, we have this looming and very, very immediate and real climate crisis that is causing, you know, health and environmental and economic impacts. And the impacts that we're seeing with the COVID crisis are sort of like a, you know, we can think about it as a preview of things to come with the climate crisis that are only going to get worse over time. The good news is that if we invest now in a clean energy recovery, we will see, you know, we have the opportunity to kind of, you know, address both of these crises at the same time in ways that benefit multiple indicators in our recovery, whether it's health or the economic recovery, jobs, businesses, or also the asset value of our housing stock. And all of those things will, you know, could be improved dramatically looking at how we can invest any stimulus dollars that we have or other funds available to get this kind of a clean energy recovery going. Before we dive into the details of what we would suggest that the commissioners think about how we could use clean COVID stimulus dollars, let's take a step back and think about, you know, just look at the history of this. You know, in 2008, we had the major housing bubble burst and the Great Recession took hold. And in response, the U.S. federal government passed the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act in 2008, which specifically provided funds for energy efficiency through a community block grant program that was $3.2 billion in 2008, and about 1.5 million of that was deployed in Thurston County through the program that was actually started by Thurston Climate Action Team called Thurston Energy. Thurston Energy was housed at the Economic Development Council and delivered energy efficiency services to landlords and homeowners, as well as businesses in the community from 2008 to 2012. And created a number of jobs and businesses out of that are still thriving today. An example of that is Echo Energy, a two-man, started off as Kyle and Johnny started this company during the original ARA funding and through Thurston Energy. And they ended up, they're still in business today. They have 9 employees, and they've retrofitted and done energy audits on hundreds and if not thousands of homes in our community. That's just one of the businesses that was supported through the 2008 Recovery Act, but it was significant. Now in 2020, this question has come up again, and although the original two versions of the first two stimulus bills that passed Congress and were signed by the president focused primarily on emergency COVID health response and unemployment dislocation, the Employment Act and all that. There have been proposals put forward since then. The House passed a bill called the HEROES Act, which had $10 billion in it for clean energy. Note that that's 3 times as much as what was in the 2008 bill. Now, of course, that bill hasn't passed the Senate or been approved, so it's just a proposal at this point. Also, the House passed the Moving Forward Act, which was a $1.5 trillion transportation and energy infrastructure bill, which also had a big focus on clean energy. So clearly this is already being thought about at the federal level, and we can add our voice to the chorus of support for this kind of a clean energy recovery.
Chris?
So, yeah.
Just go back to the previous slide for just a second.
Yeah.
I just wanted to note that, yes, the Thurston Energy Economic or Energy Efficiency Services Program had ARRA funding up to 2012. After 2012, the Economic Development Council continued to operate that program on a lower budget with some state funding and some other money that they kicked in until about 2017. And it has not been operating since 2017, 2018. And currently, TCAT retains the assets of that program through an agreement with the Economic Development Council. So just kind of to wrap that up a little bit. Yeah,
it's a good branding and has some history in the community, so has some potential value for the future as well.
Right.
But we're not going to suggest that at the moment. But so kind of looking forward, what we are asking the commissioners to consider today is obviously there's a need to fund the climate mitigation plan as a whole, and that should be considered during the 2021 budget. But we would like to put it in just to put in the request now that if the county commissioners and the other jurisdictions could team up and provide seed funding even before 2021, as soon as possible, to launch a community-wide energy efficiency program, we think we could get this. We think you guys could get this going for as little as $150,000 as an initial startup. And the reason we're proposing this more immediately than even waiting till 2021 is that in the conversation we had with Commissioner Edwards, he recounted or recalled the way that the county responded when they saw that salmon recovery was going to be a big issue. The county invested early and prepared the way so that when the federal dollars did become available, we were well positioned to compete for those funds. And in this case, a small investment now to kind of get our energy efficiency program up and running could put us in a good position to compete for those state and federal dollars and, allow us to get this recovery going faster. Of course, that's a, just a startup, but next year, of course, you're probably already hearing from some TCAT members that is with regard to the full cost of the Thurston Climate Mitigation Plan, which is, will soon be released as a draft. We've done some initial estimates and estimating that to implement the climate plan in year 2021, to begin implementing it next year, the rough estimate is about $1.2 million that we've come up with, and that would be divided among the 4 jurisdictions. Now, of course, the actual amount will have to be determined by, the commissioners and their staff and the other jurisdictions. But, if we act now, how much of that 1.2 million could come from federal stimulus dollars if we position ourselves now for that opportunity? And so that's why we're proposing an initial seed funding as soon as possible of $150,000.
So,
now,
Chris?
Yes.
Yeah, I'd also like to say that $1.2 million figure is not meant to be necessarily even comprehensive for what's required in 2021. Simply an estimate of some of the items, what we think are the highest priority items among the list of things that need to get started in 2021 that would give a good start to what needs to be done. So we're not suggesting it's even comprehensive of what needs to be, what could be usefully accomplished and invested in 2021, but simply a starting place.
Yeah, and it doesn't reflect what would be needed in following years either, because this is just a startup. There'll be a lot of work at the outset just to kind of build the foundation. But over the years, that number would increase dramatically. Hopefully, would have a good return on investment, but probably more than 1.2 or even twice that or more per year as the years go forward. But anyway, that's really our focus today is not on that 1.2 million. It's really more on this seed funding request. And so if the county commissioners teamed up with the other cities to put together an initial seed fund of $150,000, we could see that would be effective at really launching and ramping up this community-wide energy efficiency program. In the first year, that would fund the first year of work and provide staff, some funds from marketing and developing the administrative infrastructure for the program. We would obviously need to do some foundational work to establish what the scope and focus of the program would be and what the vision would be. But ultimately, it's really about building the initial capacity and the infrastructure to deliver energy efficiency service and getting that put together up front. Another big focus of this initial investment would be to build partnerships with the agencies that are already active in Thurston County, providing the kinds of housing services where we would also want to focus on energy efficiency. And of course, the initial energy efficiency program, a big focus there would also be on seeking additional funding so that 150,000 could be scaled up to actually deliver the services needed to have a countywide energy efficiency program. So, as I mentioned, the first year we would spend some time figuring out what the vision is, but here's a kind of initial idea of what that might look like. As I mentioned, we would start off by building partnerships with a lot of the existing agencies delivering housing services and work with them in a coordinated way to provide energy efficiency retrofits and really focus on the health and affordability savings that could come from doing more, having those existing housing units be more energy efficient. We would also, this program, if it were fully funded, would really seek to leverage funding and incentives and other services to provide energy upgrades and heat pump technology to more homes than just low-income housing, but to leverage funding from outside sources, from private sector, to see the multiplier effects of doing more and more of this work. Obviously, we'd want to monitor the metrics to see if we're having the desired effect. And meanwhile, we could focus on how we can do more innovation in this program through policy and working with our county and city partners to do more education and advocacy. For an example, we actually have today on the call with us Elisa Sparkman, who works for the Thurston County Public Health and Social Services Department, working on the Healthy Homes program and Thurston Thrives rental housing work group. So as you can see here, we're that connection between health and energy use and rental properties is really very clear, and even the county's working on already. We have a workshop coming up next week on dealing with mold as a tenant. So thanks, Elisa, for continuing this work, and hopefully we can work together if this program gets off the ground in the future. Being an economic crisis, the COVID recovery would want to really focus on folks in our community who are most vulnerable. And as Tom mentioned previously, about 50% of those living in rental properties are already cost burdened or severely cost burdened Actually, I looked up the numbers. Elisa helped me look up the numbers, and it's 48% currently are cost burdened or severely cost burdened. So we would want the program, if we were to launch this, to really focus on providing economic benefits to the most vulnerable members of our community so that it can deal with both the economic and the environmental issues. So focusing on rental properties, doing retrofits and improving insulation and switching out gas for heat pumps in low-income housing, whether it's Homes First rental properties or larger multifamily housing projects. And then when it comes to going beyond the low-income members and people of color in our community who are most impacted by this, we wouldn't want to be providing direct subsidies to provide those services necessarily. That would be beyond the scope of what any funding source could probably do if we wanted to try to retrofit all the homes in our community. So instead, with middle income and higher households, we would focus on providing rebates and incentives and try to leverage financing from the private sector, because those middle income community households are more able to fund this on their own, and we can leverage and get multiplier effects if we just provide rebates and incentives for them to do it. So that's kind of the focus of our energy efficiency program that we're proposing. And again, an initial investment to get this up and running, so we're positioned and ready for the next round of funding. Now, the next two areas we also think are really ripe for, oh, go ahead.
I just want, before you move on to the next section or the next piece, I just wanted to clarify, on page 5, you talked about for 2012 to 2016, that 5-year average, 37% of Thurston County households were severely cost burdened.
That's right.
About 38,000. Does that not include rentals? That's just households?
It does.
It does include rentals?
That includes all households, but the other figure I gave was just for the rentals, the rental property sector.
48%. Okay.
Yeah.
Any idea
That's
how
right.
many what kind of numbers that means? How many thousands?
Let's see. I'd have to refer back to the building stock data. Elisa, do you have any insight on that? How many individuals or how many households we'd be talking about in the?
I don't have that data in front of me, and I guess it would take some math to figure that out. And
Okay.
I don't really have the numbers of the county in front of me to do that.
Thank you. It's not that important. I just want to know if you have that, because I'm doing the cost comparison. Thank you very much.
We'll try to get back to you with that information, or maybe you can find it. It would be interesting to know, and we do have access to that data. We just don't have it in front of us right now.
Thank you. Sorry to throw you off here. Go ahead.
Yeah, no problem. So that kind of concludes the presentation about what this community-wide energy efficiency program would do, and the 150,000 that we're suggesting would be limited to just this program. Now, there are a couple of other areas that we think that would be really important to include in a clean energy recovery plan, but those are not covered in this request specifically. So as you all know, we have a really great new organization in town that's doing community solar. That's Olympia Community Solar, and that they're really leading the way. And we think that we'd like to see more of what they're doing as a part of a clean energy recovery. And that would be, supporting community solar projects, and then using those projects with the federal or local dollars that were invested in those projects could be passed on to low-income households in the form of virtual net metering credits that are delivered through the community solar projects. That way, a low-income household or a person of color living in a rental property could receive the benefits of solar energy and have their energy bills offset as a result, without actually having to put solar on their own roof. It would be put on like the Hands-On Children's Museum or another property, and they would get the benefit of cost savings from that solar energy directly to them. So that's one area where we could see that happening. And so right now they only have the 100 megawatt project going with the Hummingbird project on the Hands-On Children's Museum. But over the next 3 years, what if we could do 4 more projects like that and deliver the benefits to low-income households? That would provide durable economic benefits to those households over many years to come, not just immediate relief, but also long-term relief. Also, we could use federal funding or other stimulus dollars to put solar on affordable housing projects in our community, whether it's individual single-family homes managed by Homes First, or homes or larger multifamily projects that Lehigh and other low-income developers have built in our community. Let's get solar on those buildings so that the residents have zero energy bills as a way of making the housing more affordable. Again, we're getting multiple benefits, both climate and housing and economic benefits. And then as part of the climate mitigation plan, there are actions in there for group purchasing projects and solarized campaigns, which are neighborhood-based purchasing efforts to get more homes with solar. And then again, just like with the community and energy efficiency program, we also need to have education and advocacy ongoing to let our community know how important this is, both for economic and environmental reasons. So that's the solar and clean energy portion of this proposal. And I'm going to turn it back over to Tom now, because he's going to talk a little bit more about one other element, which is transportation. Tom, are you muted?
Yeah, no, I just got back there.
There you go.
Okay. So
we just have a few minutes. We probably should try to wrap this up pretty quickly, Tom.
Thank you, Chris.
Yeah.
Now we're turning our attention to transportation, which, as I mentioned earlier, is a key component of clean energy, of our clean energy future. So Chris, go ahead to the next slide. And so our vision, a vision for how these services might work would include a transportation advisory service that would be parallel to and similar to in sort of concept and functionality to the energy efficiency service that Chris talked about earlier. This would include potentially transportation audits that would allow people to get a clear understanding of their current transportation costs and some of the disadvantages or difficulties with their current transportation choices, and advise individuals and small businesses on their options and better alternatives, such as buying an economical electric vehicle, or buying at least a more energy efficient vehicle, or perhaps using their vehicle less often and selecting other shared options, transit and other options for their transportation solutions. And finally, it'd be critical for many of the reasons that Chris talked about to make sure that those solutions are affordable to everyone through incentives, through low interest loans, through helping people find affordable vehicles and solutions that actually fit their budget and would leave more money in their pockets. Next. Another component of this would be to ensure that there's coordination among the agencies whose services currently touch on transportation or are focused on transportation. And those services and agencies include, as per this slide, Intercity Transit. The Regional Planning Council has a key role in not only planning and providing funding for roadway projects here in Thurston County, but also for transportation alternatives. And obviously Washington Department of Transportation. The gap is that none of these agencies currently provides a focus on low carbon, low emissions transportation solutions. And so helping coordinate around the things that they do provide and finding solutions by working together that can refocus some of their efforts into this very, very critical area will be key to making significant progress on greenhouse gas emissions in the future. And as we're learning through the Thurston Climate Mitigation Plan process over time, particularly as the provisions of the Clean Energy Transformation Act, which will take hold, which will dramatically bring down the emissions due to building energy, then transportation will become an increasingly more and more important part of our clean energy solution here in Thurston County. So, so here are some of the things that would be included in coordinating some of those efforts. So now let's talk about advocating, and this, as per our initial slide, this will be a key component as well, to advocate at the higher levels of government, at the state level and at the federal level, obviously, for additional funding for some of these solutions. And so here quickly is the quote from the McKinsey & Company paper that we shared with you. So I think some of you have seen this, and so I won't delve into this in detail. So let's go to the next slide, Chris. So some of the things that we can encourage these various levels to do is, first of all, is we're focusing at the city and county level on clean energy recovery. We can, with the recovery funds that already have become available or are in the pipeline, we can begin, and as we think, toward the future and things that are likely to come in, and Chris has already, summarized that for you. We can begin focusing our own plans on centering recovery work around clean energy, so we can, at the same time, we can call on our governor and our senators and representatives to provide leadership in making sure that that kind of funding is included in future recovery and stimulus bills and budget items that
and Tom, if I could just interject here, what we're saying with this slide, obviously TCAT and the Eco Building Guild are going to be advocating with those at those levels, but we're asking you, the Board of County Commissioners, and other leaders in our community to join with that and really to take the lead in advocating with the statewide and federal representatives, and also with Thurston Strong to make this a centerpiece of our community's leadership. And so we're asking you guys to get active in the advocacy for this particular focus.
And this falls under the within the Thurston Climate Mitigation Plan process. There's a category of advocacy at the state and federal levels, and this falls directly within that category. And so what we're doing really is reinforcing the importance of you all and your colleagues in the cities to become much more active in that arena. So let's go to the next slide, Chris. And so to summarize, we're really asking you to do two things: to allocate some dollars as soon as possible for the county's share of this $150,000 seed funding to launch an energy efficiency program, and then to put clean energy and transportation work at the center of your future recovery and stimulus projects. And then I think a third thing that we don't have on this slide is put this as a key component of your legislative agenda, along with the other cities within Thurston County. And so with that, I think I'll wrap it up, unless there's anything else, Chris, that you wanted to add.
Nope, I think that's a great summary. And we understand that I guess the only thing I would add is that we understand it's a difficult time to find dollars to invest. But if you think about it, if we had a crystal ball in 2008 and knew that a pandemic was coming, would we have made more of an investment then? We know that the climate crisis is going to lead to ever growing economic disruptions, more virulent diseases, wildfires, etc. Now is the time for us to be bold and think to the future with some vision, because if we invest now, we will actually be in a better position long term than if we wait till the crisis is upon us, like we were caught off guard, like with the pandemic. We don't want to be caught off guard in the future with the climate crisis. So thank you for your attention. Let's open it up to some comments and questions if any of the commissioners or staff have questions.
Thank you, Chris.
I just want to go to Jenica real quick. Jenica, do you have anything to add, or do you have a perspective?
No, apart from the meeting that I was in with you, Commissioner Hutchings, this will be the first time that I've seen some of this information, and so I don't have anything additional to add right now.
Did I cut you off, Tom?
No, that's fine.
Okay.
Thank you.
Commissioner Menzer, any questions or comments?
Yeah, how does the clean energy program that you're envisioning connect to the CPACER program? Would that be part of it? Would that fall into the same staffing, or is that something different?
Well, CPACER is a bill that has authorized private financing of energy efficiency projects. Now, it is incumbent on the county to authorize that program, but once it's in place, it's a tool in your toolbox to incentivize investment in clean energy for both new buildings and retrofit buildings that are commercial or multifamily. So it would be a tool in the toolbox that would be part of this, but it would not replace the need for providing direct energy efficiency services. It would just, it would be one of those things like where we can leverage private dollars, we can use rebates, incentives to leverage those dollars, but having a community-wide program in place would allow us to be able to drive that program forward through education and marketing, through partnerships with the existing housing agencies. Without some kind of agency, without an organization or a program leading the charge, that CPACER funding could just sit there untapped. So we need to kind of leverage it.
So at first you said $150,000, and then Tom made reference at the end to the county share. So you'd be looking for proportional. You think that $150,000 total, and it would be contributed potentially by different jurisdictions. And I don't know exactly what the percentage that the county pays for the climate mitigation plan. I assume we would use the same percentages. I don't know if that's 50% or 40 or something, but
Right.
Okay, so it's less than 150 maybe, if that's the right number, and if the other jurisdictions cooperated. Have you had a presentation to other jurisdictions to see are we first on the list?
You're first.
Okay.
We've had other conversations with them about funding this, and you've been a part of that. And but this is the first presentation we've given with this specific request. And the other thing I would say is that we wouldn't have been so bold to bring forward a request unless Commissioner Edwards, in our conversation with him, had encouraged us to do so. So this is sort of responding to his encouragement. So Tom, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, a couple of things. Each of the 4 jurisdictions contribute equally to the cost of the climate mitigation planning process. And so that's split, evenly across all 4 jurisdictions. That's the way it's handled in that particular project. And the other thing I want to just sort of reference is that we thought about coming to you with a specific dollar figure within your percentage within this, but we really, the more we thought about it, we thought, well, that's really something that might be best worked out among the jurisdictions that pursue this. Hopefully all 4 of the same jurisdictions involved in the climate mitigation plan process, rather than us presuming or trying to suggest a particular formula.
Commissioner Hutchings, did you want to say something?
Well, you already answered my questions. I was going to ask you to keep talking about the 4 jurisdictions. And I know that Tenino they're big on energy and solar and such, especially with Dave Watterson bringing that to the forefront constantly. That's not a negative. And I don't know if they've been talked with at all in any regard. But when it came to advocacy, I was going to ask the same thing. Have you presented to the cities, to TRPC, to the EDC and such? But you've already answered that this is the first go around. But I have to tell you, I'm smarter now than I was 40 minutes ago. So this is a very meaty subject and encouraging. So thank you for that education.
I guess if you express interest in this, we would be glad to pursue it, help you pursue it, or work with you to take it to the other jurisdictions as well.
Okay.
Well, if our contribution is 25% of $150,000, we've spent about 8 times that amount on hazard pay for the sheriff's office during the pandemic. So I really don't want to hear about, we don't have those kind of resources. This is super important. So if we can get buy-in from the other jurisdictions to relaunch Thurston Energy or whatever the right vehicle is,
Yeah.
I'm all for it.
Yeah, Tom mentioned that Thurston Energy is a brand, and there are assets that came from the original program that TCAT now has ownership of. We certainly thought that might be one vehicle, but we of course leave it open to the county commissions and the bidding process should you decide to move forward on this. That whatever the best vehicle to launch this program would be the way to go. And Thurston Energy might be one of those possibilities, but there may be others. So. Obviously we defer to the process on that.
County Manager Ramiro Chavez, do you have any questions or comments?
No, that's certainly interesting. Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. Certainly interesting to hear. This is a great proposal. And I just want to, just setting the expectations, some of the stakeholders here. I know the urgency of whatever portion of the county is $150,000. I will bring this part of the commissioners' conversation, but it has to be created via an appropriation. So it's not something that the board can just say, whatever dollar amount is been given, it has to be added to the budget. And that presents a little bit of difficulty, at least from what I see right now, to make your request available in 2020. There is a budget amendment coming up and the public hearing is set for next Wednesday, and the board may be considering implementing the fourth quarter budget amendment that in August 4th. Whether the board would like to change that and include this appropriation at that level, that's a discussion the board needs to have. And passing that, after that, really is not going to be an opportunity until the end of the year, or perhaps as part of the 21-22 biennial budget. So I just want to make sure that I set those expectations a little bit more in concrete, because there are several steps the county needs to take if the board, in fact, wants to support this effort. But also, I would like to probably hear from the group as to when you're planning to reach out to the other jurisdictions. Because if the county's participation, if there is a willingness from the board to support this effort, but if the other jurisdictions are not in the same position, then it will be a hollow support for whatever dollar amount that will be. So I'm just curious on that.
And that could be working in reverse too. The cities may say, well, the county's not getting in or making a commitment, why should we? They generally want to see the county take the lead. So I see it cutting both ways as maybe a face saver for the cities as well. But it's an excellent point.
Yeah, we wanted to bring it to you first, and if we get a positive reception, then we'll immediately go to the other jurisdictions and speak with the Finance Committee chair of the Finance Committee and the other jurisdictions to do that. But if you guys were unwilling, then we wouldn't have much luck with them either. So yeah, if we get a positive, then we'll proceed immediately. Go ahead, Ty.
Yeah, and I'm not sure it'd be unwilling, but
Yeah.
maybe an inability.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Ty.
Robin's on the line, and I know, isn't it, I think I've seen other situations where we put in, like, I don't want to use the wrong terminology, but proviso language or something to where we allocate X dollars conditional on the equal participation of the other jurisdictions, and then therefore we only make that appropriation and then these guys could take that commitment and to the other councils and say, the county has put this in, but it's conditional on you. And that just puts additional pressure on those municipalities. I don't know. I think that's a possibility, right?
That's possible, yes.
Okay. So in a sense, the timing's pretty good because we're about to tee up a budget amendment, probably August 4th, if we
Great.
wanted to do that. So it's something the board should talk about.
Did you have anything else to add, Robin, or any questions now that you're popped in? Okay. And Romero, was that it?
Yeah, I will bring this item for on Tuesday morning for further conversation by the board. And then at that point, I will ask whether you might be interested on the fourth quarter budget amendment, whether it's via proviso along with the proviso that Commissioner Messer mentioned. That we'll have to find out where that appropriation will come from.
Okay. And with due respect to Phyllis and Alyssa, Alyssa, did you have anything to add? Did you want to be a part of the conversation? I don't want to leave anybody out.
Thanks for asking. I do want to just kind of, so I'm the coordinator of Healthy Homes program under public health. And so with my background, I've spent a lot of time talking with people who are experiencing problems with their housing conditions. And so much of what will fix the problems that they are experiencing inside their home are what will also improve the energy efficiency of the home. And they're not always renters who contact our program, but most of the time they are. And in my work through the rental housing work group through Thurston Thrives, we are looking at improving rental housing overall for Thurston County. And the conditions improved by energy efficiency, the cost savings of energy bills, the climate piece as well, along with the fact that these efficiencies improve the structure of the housing so that it will last longer and serve as good, adequate housing over time. Right now, we don't have enough housing for everybody, and we work to build more housing. This is a step that will also help preserve the housing that we have. So for the rental housing piece, I think there's so many benefits to investing in this for housing as well as energy efficiency and reducing carbon emissions, that it's just it's a really great bang for your buck. That's kind of my piece that I wanted to put in there for housing as well as energy efficiency.
Thank you, Lisa. Phyllis, we have 1 minute. You want to say anything?
Yes, thank you. I just really appreciate how well Tom and Chris have presented this information and the receptivity that I have seen to these ideas. And I just encourage us to be proactive in addressing climate and energy issues for our community. It's important that we be mindful of those. So thank you.
You're welcome. 30 seconds. Sam, do you want to join in? You popped up.
Okay. Yeah, I just would like to say that I really liked Commissioner Minster's idea that there could be an approval of seed money that would be then contingent on similar approval by the other jurisdictions. So everything sounds really encouraging here, and hope we can move ahead. Thank you.
Good. Thank you. And actually, I got 15 seconds for you, Wayne, and then we're done.
Yes, thank you very much. I am really encouraged with your responses, so I appreciate everybody's effort on this. Thank you. Good.
Thank you all very much. And Romero, do you want to wrap it up?
No, sir. I just bring this conversation to you for the board on Tuesday morning during agenda setting.
Great. Thank you. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
We'll talk later.
Appreciate the time you gave us for this. Thank you very much. Talk to you soon.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Great job, Tom and Chris.
Yes, thank you.